from businesses, witnesses, anything whatsoever that would show that would be a waste of time to find out if anyone dumped anything on the way to the gas station.
Nothing in an investigation is a waste of time. However, if I don't have any information that evidence exists, I am not going to look for evidence that I have no information exists.
And if something's hidden, you'll never find it, right? You won't find it if you don't bother looking. There's no way you can find it if you don't even try, right?
I'm going to continue saying the same sentence. It applies to everything you're saying, sir.
Okay, you don't think Travis Rudolph's life is worth checking out the path of the car?
I think Travis Rudolph's life is worth me conducting an investigation based off of evidence, which is what our investigations are based off of.
And you get the evidence that somebody gives you that just is right there. You don't bother digging for it, right?
No, we get evidence in many ways.
You can't give us one logical reason why you or anybody in your department or West Palm Beach did not search the path of travel of the car, other than you didn't know evidence existed, so you weren't going to look for evidence.
No, that's not what I said.
I didn't explain to you. Give us one logical reason why you didn't send anyone, or yourself, or the hundreds of people that work for you and the other department in West Palm. Why didn't you have anyone look the path of travel?
I don't have any information that evidence exists. I am not going to look for evidence that I have no information exists.
Okay, so if a gun was dumped in the water while they're driving over a bridge, you would never know that because people lie to you every day when they're trying to get away with crimes, right?
I'm lied to often, yes, sir.
Yeah. So how would you know evidence exists if you don't send a dive team out if there's a possibility that there's a gun in the bottom of the Intercoastal?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do that anyway.
Your department doesn't have that?
No. In order for the dive team to go into the water, they have to have information that there is something for them to dive into the water for. They don't just arbitrarily dive into water if I say, hey, there's a possibility that maybe there's something in there. That's not how that works.
You search anywhere down North Redwood even? Or have any of the police officers with a Cadillac drove away? Did you have anyone even search that rest of that block before they got to Federal?
I know Agent McMichael came out and was searching that area.
He searched the whole block all the way to Federal?
I wasn't with him. I trust him in his abilities to do his job. So
he didn't do that, did he? You don't know?
I don't recall if he went down Redwood. I know he went there to search.
And yes, no, and then you can explain. Did you ask Agent McMichael with his dog named Sailor, who can smell ballistic evidence and gun evidence? Did you ask him to go to 40th and Broadway at all?
No, sir.
Absolutely no, right?
Yes, sir.
And you absolutely didn't ask him to go search the path of travel even for 2 blocks away from which this car traveled, right?
I don't believe... I'm not even sure if I spoke to him that night. As I've said before, we all work in a team and different people take on different roles. I'm not sure that I even saw him that night.
As the sergeant, you knew he was there. You knew he found the gun with his dog, right?
I knew he responded. I did know that he found a gun. But as far as directing him where to go, exactly where he went, that was not something that I specifically coordinated.
You could have called him or asked your sergeant or your lieutenant or your captain, do me a favor, ask Agent McMichael to take Sailor and walk a couple of blocks to see where the oil path went down Redwood to Dixie Highway or Federal, whatever you call it, and check if there was even a gun thrown out or a weapon thrown out in that immediate area. You didn't do that, did you?
Well, I know that the dog was there.
Yes, no, and then you can explain. Did you do that, ma'am?
Did I ask specifically for that? No, sir.
Okay, you want to explain why you didn't ask for it?
Agent McMichael is a professional who is highly trained in what he does. He knew why he was there. I trust my coworkers, who I still trust, to properly inform Agent McMichael. So it wouldn't necessarily be necessary for me to supervise it when I knew that he knows how to do his job, and I know that my trusted coworkers were handling that particular part of this investigation.
He testified earlier today that nobody asked him to do a search down the rest of Redwood and Federal all the way to where the car was parked in Broadway and 40th. If he was asked, he could have done that, but nobody asked him. Do you dispute that?
Certainly nobody asked him to check all the way down to 40th. No, sir.
Okay. Do you dispute that testimony?
If that's testimony he gave, then no.
Okay. And do you dispute that Agent Michael didn't even know what was going on, or there was even a scene on 40th and Broadway?
I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't.
Why you, as the lead detective, didn't inform him of that?
Because I didn't have any information that there was evidence there for him to search for.
Found the gun on the 8th, and you confirmed it was Tyler Robinson, one of the men who went over to my client's house at midnight uninvited on April 7th. Isn't that true, ma'am?
Yes. You said I found out on the 8th of April?
That it was Tyler Robinson's gun based on his own admission. And the paperwork that he gave you, showing that he bought the gun from his brother, Keyshawn Jones.
Correct, but that doesn't mean that anybody else was armed, and that doesn't give me evidence that others were.
Doesn't that give you a hint that maybe these guys have more to the story than not being forward straight with you because they don't want to get arrested for trying to kill Mr. Rudolph and the other Mr. Rudolph, Darryl Rudolph? And doesn't that give you a hint or a clue that they could be covering up what they did?
No.
So you find out it's Tyler Robinson's gun. He gives you the paperwork and the box that he has in his house. Got his DNA on the gun. That was taken too, right?
I don't believe we got the DNA off of his gun.
Crime scene investigator Ali testified that she swabbed it.
You're right.
Remember that?
She does swab everything. Or she would swab a gun. It is within their protocol to swab a gun. Yes, sir.
But you never asked to get it checked, right?
No, sir.
You know, November 30th, I don't remember the exact date. I'll find it in a second, but it's November of 2021. Under oath at a hearing in front of this courtroom, Tyler Robinson couldn't remember if that was his gun or if he even had a gun that day. You know that?
No.
You know that he couldn't remember even going over to Mr. Rudolph's house? You know anything about that?
No, sir.
He had no idea about anything that happened that day, and that's his testimony was over and over. He couldn't remember anything. You don't know about that, do you?
No, sir.
Isn't it important to check DNA if someone has a real memory that disappears or a fake memory that disappears, so we would have evidence in a courtroom that was his gun? If it really matches up. If Tyler Robinson's DNA is on that gun and you never checked it, how would we know that if he then says, I don't remember anything?
Because the paperwork that went along with the firearm that has matching information between the firearm and the paperwork shows that was his gun.
But he gave a gun to his buddy that night to hold. He could have gave it to Gene Jacques or Mr. Gene Jacques or Mr. Keyshawn Jones, right? You don't know.
Theoretically, it could have.
Right?
Yes.
You ever been involved in homicide cases where people come in court under oath 6, 7, 8 months after the incident happens and they don't remember a single thing that happened after they gave multiple statements to you and 2 other law enforcement officers? You ever see that before?
I'm sure it happens.
Tell me where you've seen that before. Tell me. Name one case.
I can't off the top of my head, sir.
Very unusual, isn't it? No? You don't know?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
But wouldn't it be prudent to get somebody's DNA if they come to the courtroom and they say, I don't know if that was my gun. I don't remember being there. I don't remember doing anything. I don't remember a single thing about what happened. And that's their testimony under oath. Wouldn't it be important for a jury in a trial like this to then be able to see if his DNA is on the gun?
But if I have no knowledge of that, I can't do that.
You had knowledge of that he wasn't being straight with the first 2 detectives or the first road patrol officer, right?
No.
You don't have knowledge of that?
No.
Okay, so not telling the police that he dumped his gun by offense is not being, that's being honest?
Based on the circumstances, it's not that he's being necessarily dishonest. It doesn't mean that.
You his protector?
Am I his protector?
Yeah, are you trying to protect him for some reason?
No, sir.
Well, what if he goes to the hospital and you got experienced detectives talking to him? You think they're going to talk to him when he's under anesthesia?
I, no, I would hope not.
You know Detective Ema. He's not that kind of person who would do that, right?
No.
He knows what he's doing.
Yes.
How long was that statement, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, sir. I'm not going to testify. I don't know. Testify to that information. I don't know. I did, but I didn't make a point to check the timestamp of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it wasn't a 10-minute statement like you did, right? At the gas station with Mr. Lowe and Mr.
You're referring to Ema.
Yeah,
The Ema's statement?
It was longer than your statements that you took of Chris Lowe and Keyshawn Jones, right?
Again, I don't know. I didn't look at the timestamp.
Well, whether it was a minute statement or a 10-hour statement, at no time did Tyler Robinson tell Detective Ema that he dumped his gun. Isn't that true, ma'am?
That's correct.
Not until you found the gun, not you personally, but the dog found the gun from Agent McMichael, and you knew about it, and now the gig was up. He had to say it was his gun, right?
He didn't have to say anything.
But he chose to talk to you. You remembered then, right?
He did talk to me, yes.
He said it was his gun. He didn't say, I don't remember anything.
He did not say that, no.
That was 2 days after the homicide. Or a day
That was
after.
the 8th. Yes, sir. So it was the day after.
He was in the hospital for 1 day, right?
Appears so, yes, sir.
When you spoke to Tyler Robinson, did he tell you he was frustrated?
Frustrated. I'm not sure what
He
you're
doesn't want to
referring
talk to you. You're asking too many questions. Tell you that?
When I spoke to him, no, sir.
Never mentioned that, right?
No, he was very cooperative.
Say that he was immature and made the wrong decisions about things. Did he ever say anything like that?
No, sir.
You ever challenge him and ask him why he brought a gun to my client's house at 12 o'clock at night in a domestic situation between two grown people?
I asked him why he brought it, and I believe his response was that he carries his gun. I mean, it wasn't, he never said that he brought it to use it against your client or anything like that.
He says he carries it all the time. Is that what he tells you?
I don't know if he said he carries it all the time. I don't believe that's what he said.
Tell you he had a holster for it?
I'm not sure. I don't think he told me that specifically.
You asked him how he carried it, whether it was in his pants, his front, rear pockets, rear pants, waistband, on the leg, holster. Did you ask him?
Well, I knew that night he carried it in his pocket, from what he said.
Okay. So did he tell you he forgot the gun was in his pocket? Did he ever say anything like that to you when you spoke to him?
Something, he said he didn't use it because he wasn't even thinking of it at the time until he knew that he was going to be in the presence of law enforcement, and then he realized he was afraid that he was going to be accused of being the shooter. So that was his reasoning for leaving it where he did.
So if Tyler Robinson pointed a gun at the Rudolph brothers, do you expect him to answer that on the 8th? Yeah, I did do that. Do you think he's going to just come forward and tell you he tried to kill the Rudolph brothers? You expect him to say that, man?
I don't expect anybody to say anything. I don't expect anything.
Most people cover up, don't they?
No.
You know,
I'm not going to say that most people cover up.
they,
That's not my experience.
someone points a gun trying to kill someone, they usually come and tell you that. And they say, yeah.
Well, it depends on the situation, but most of the time, yes.
Yeah,
In my experience, yes, sir.
they confess that they're the aggressor and they're the ones who are going to shoot first.
Typically not.
That's something they would not want you to know, because you could charge them with attempted murder, possibly, right?
It is possible, but I am not going to hypothesize of the reasoning for somebody saying something or not saying something.
I have no idea why they would somebody would tell you the truth. You don't know why somebody wouldn't tell you the truth about pointing a gun. That doesn't factor into your thinking. Why somebody would lie to you about pointing a gun at another human being?
Well, I can understand why somebody would, yes. But that doesn't mean that that occurs.
It doesn't, right?
Either way, you're right.
You're skeptical of a police officer that aren't being straight. He said he had in his pocket, I believe. Good.
Um, if I have information that evidence exists contrary to that, then I explore that.
So someone has to physically give you evidence or show you evidence that it's contrary before you will act on trying to disprove what somebody's telling you.
No, I didn't say that.
All right. Yes.
This is my 10th hearing.
You've never heard in a text message or seen in a text message ever, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody's writing to their family or friends, somebody is a dead man walking. Have you ever seen that?
Text message form? No, sir.
That's pretty unusual for someone to put that in writing, right?
I have no opinion whether it's usual or unusual.
Okay. That didn't ring a bell to you that, hey, this is premeditation? Someone's going to go do something and kill another human being, possibly? Could be a joke or it could be real, right?
That's not evidence of anything occurring, though.
So if Keyshawn Jones shot Mr. Rudolph, hypothetically, and killed him right on his doorstep, wouldn't that be extremely good evidence of heightened premeditation? The best meditation you can get. The text message that he's a dead man walking. That'd be great evidence, right?
If that's how it happened, yes.
Okay. So if he doesn't actually do the killing, just writing that means got nothing to do with this case, right?
I never said that.
Then why didn't you go back when you got his phone, Keyshawn Jones, and ask him and his buddies, or at least Tyler Robinson that saw the message, and his sister, why didn't you ask Keyshawn Jones why he wrote Travis is a dead man walking after he finds out his sister's claiming my client did domestic violence with her?
Because he had, and really all the people involved who were originally in the Cadillac, they had already told me from the beginning. They admitted that yes, they were extremely angry in the beginning, and they were upset, and I think they used the word.
Not Keyshawn Jones, not anyone else, man.
Okay, so Keyshawn Jones, all of what I just said applies to him as well. He had already specifically said that he was angry at first. I believe it was. So I believe 9:45 was when that text conversation started, where Miss Jones said that Travis dropped her, or whatever the exact verbiage is. And they didn't arrive at his house until midnight. So that's over 2 hours. So he had explained from the very beginning that he was very upset at first, but as time went on, they cooled down, and that by the time they went there, it was no longer it was not the intent of theirs to hurt anybody at that point. It was to speak with him, which makes sense considering he was trying to call him. So he was clearly trying to communicate with him, which is corroborative of what he was saying.
Right. So you solved the case just on that alone, right?
Absolutely not.
Dominique Jones broke Mr. Rudolph's phone, right? You don't know that?
No,
No?
not that I recall.
Broke his windshield, right?
I don't recall.
The BMW that was the flat paint, the black paint, and the BMW X5 in front of his home on 550 T Drive. She broke his windshield, Dominique Jones, didn't she?
I don't know that she broke his windshield.
You don't know that?
No.
That's a crime, right?
I would have to be able to prove it.
Well, she came in a courtroom and swore under oath. She broke it.
That wouldn't be something I know.
Never heard that before, right?
I don't believe so.
How about the PlayStation? Did you know? You know what a PlayStation is, right?
I know what PlayStation is, yes, sir.
I'm not being facetious. Some people don't.
Okay.
Right. So, isn't it true Dominic Jones broke his PlayStation as well?
I don't know that.
You don't know.
No, I don't. I don't recall that information.
So Keyshawn Jones tells you from day one. The only time you talked to him was day one, right? So I'm clear.
No. Spoke to him
Only
on the
sworn
fifth.
statement, and the only thing in your report is from the first day when you talked to him, right?
The only sworn statement was that night, yes.
And you don't take chit chat, how a case is going, and things like that. That's not a statement that you put in your report, do you?
If during the course of a non-sworn, non-recorded conversation with somebody, something is brought up that I feel is of particular evidentiary value, then at that point I would stop the conversation and do a sworn statement or record the statement and go over the information that was discussed.
That never happened in this case. One statement for approximately 10 minutes.
One recorded statement, yes.
Is there any unrecorded statements that are of importance, ma'am? The Keyshawn Jones that you had, you keep inferring recorded. So is there any unrecorded statements that are of any importance?
No, sir.
Oh. So the only time you talked to him, he never mentioned, he said, no, he did mention, he said, no one in our car had a gun, right? With them. That's what he told you, basically. Disagree with that?
I'm not gonna testify to basicallys.
You disagree with that or not? Not emphatically.
I don't believe he specifically said that no one had a gun. I believe the way it was worded was that they weren't aware of anybody having a gun.
He specifically told you he did not have a gun, right?
Mr. Jones?
Yeah.
Correct.
You know that he has a concealed weapons permit?
Yes.
You know Mr. Jones carries his gun pretty much on many places where he goes? Concealed?
He would have every right to if he has a concealed.
You don't know that, right?
I don't know that he carries everywhere he goes. No, sir.
Or most places he goes. You don't know. You never asked that.
No, sir.
So wouldn't it be prudent as a lead detective or even an assisting detective or even a road patrol officer when Mr. Keyshawn Jones tells you, ma'am, I didn't have my gun with me. My gun's in my house. Wouldn't you go to his house and check if he's telling the truth?
No.
No.
Not in this situation, no.
He gets a free ride too?
No, sir.
Tell you whatever he wants and you believe it.
No, sir.
You can't tell this jury if Mr. Keyshawn Jones' gun that he allegedly owned back in April 7th of 2021 was in his apartment, was in his car, disappeared, was thrown on a roof, thrown in a lake, thrown in a canal. You don't know. You never checked, right? You never saw his gun.
I had no evidence that he had his gun with him. And when that was discussed on during Dominique's,
I asked you if you did anything to check if his gun was where he claimed it was. If he even has it today, the same gun back on April 7th of 21. You can't tell this jury if he still owns that gun, can you?
certainly not. No.
And the reason you can't do that is because you couldn't spend 10 minutes or an hour to go to his house or send somebody and check it out. Yeah, you said you had no gun? Let me see if that gun still exists, right? You didn't do that, did you?
At the time that I learned of that, no, sir.
You didn't do it till today. 2 years later, more than 2 years after this horrible incident happened. To this day, you can't tell this jury if Keyshawn Jones discarded the gun that he owned on April 7th of 2021. Can you, ma'am?
No, sir.
If you would have went to his house and he said, ma'am, here it is. Here's the serial number. I bought it on this day. I still have the gun. Now what he says is confirmed, right?
No,
Not confirmed.
that's first of all, I can't just walk into somebody's house and say, "Show me your gun." Second of all, I didn't learn that he carries a gun until the 15th, which was more than a week later. If I had gone there and he had a gun in his house a week after the incident, that would be by no means evidence that he had a gun with him or had a gun in his car on the night of the murder. So, no, I didn't go to the house to check for a gun that he possibly owns.
Okay. And if he would have, I know you don't believe it and you think he did absolutely nothing wrong, you made that perfectly clear. He told you the truth. That's your opinion, right? Right? That's your opinion.
That he did absolutely nothing wrong and he's a.
Yeah, he's a saint. He's a good guy.
I'm not going to make a statement such as that, sir. No.
All right, so
That's not for me to judge.
listen to my question because I don't think you're following me. And if you don't follow me, I'll explain it again.
May not. Go ahead.
Keyshawn Jones, simple question, basically tells you he did not have a gun with him on the night of April 7th, right?
Correct.
All right. Forget about Tyler Jones's gun being found. Forget about all the questions on 40th of where you searched it in. Forget all that.
Okay.
He made that statement.
Yes.
If there was even a 1/1,000,000th of a percent or 1,000% that he discarded that gun because he wasn't being truthful with you, that he discarded the gun because he didn't want you and the rest of the police officers to find it after this incident happened, just like his buddy Tyler did. He threw his gun away. If he would have possibly did that, couldn't you either confirm that he still has the gun? Because if he threw it away, what happened? Or you can refute it. You can show this jury that he's not being straight by just checking if he even has that gun that he owned on April 7th. You follow that?
Yes, sir. I did.
Why didn't you didn't do that, did you, ma'am?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And then he gave you consent to search his phone, right?
He did.
Pretty much had no choice. You already had it. It was in the car, right?
He absolutely had the choice.
You would have got a warrant if he didn't give you consent, right?
If I had probable cause to.
Well, did you tell him that?
Did I tell him why?
If you don't give consent, I'm going to get a warrant.
I didn't have to. He was cooperative.
You what?
He was cooperative. I
Okay.
didn't have to say that.
Did you go to his house when you got his signature?
No.
Where'd you meet him?
He was with Miss Jones at the substation, or not the substation, the offsite.
Where's that?
Currently, it is.
Oh, back and forth.
Well, it was the same place, but it is on community and military in that area.
You know how far that is from Delray Beach?
No,
You know how they got there?
I believe they drove.
Typically send crime scene over to people's homes. Whether you have a warrant or not, if you have permission, you can go in the house, right?
I don't just send crime scene over to homes. If I have a reason to go in somebody's house and I need to document something, I may.
You never tried to even, whether you can get a warrant, probable cause or not, you didn't even make the effort to say, Mr. Jones, can you please show me the gun that you had or owned on April 7th? You didn't do that, right?
Well, again, as I just explained, doing
Did you do that or not? That's all I'm asking.
prove or disprove nothing. No, sir, I didn't do that.
Didn't make a difference to you, right?
Nothing ever doesn't matter to me, or doesn't make a difference, or I don't care. None of that is ever the case, ever. It wasn't back then, and it's not now. So using terms like that is simply untrue, sir.
You check records to find out if you bought another gun since April 7th, 2021. Keyshawn Jones?
There's no way to do that unless I go to each and every gun retailer and ask them specifically if that specific person purchased a gun.
Not true. Every time someone buys a gun, they have to do a background check or if they have a CCW, concealed weapons permit. They fill out a sign-off form and it goes to the state of Florida. They keep records of every serial number and every gun purchased. Isn't that true?
No.
You don't believe that's true? You said no. You don't believe that's true, ma'am?
There is no database for me to look up who buys what firearm. That doesn't, to my knowledge, that doesn't exist.